There's a bacterium living in your gut right now that is literally fixing your brain, reducing your stress, improving your sleep, and changing your mood. And scientists just discovered exactly how it does it. This is its story. The bacterium is Bifidobacterium longum, a single, microscopic, rod-shaped organism living in your gut. The first time anyone encountered this family of bacteria was in the year 1900. A French pediatrician named Henri Tissier was examining the feces of breastfed infants when he noticed something unusual: a branching Y-shaped microorganism that seemed to flourish in the guts of healthy babies. He called it Bacillus bifidus communis. The term bifidus comes from Latin and means cleft in two parts. It would take another 24 years before a Danish microbiologist named Orla Jensen proposed that this peculiar organism deserved its own genus, and he called it Bifidobacterium. Fast forward to 1963, when a researcher named Reuter isolated specific strains of what we now call Bifidobacterium longum. And here the story gets genuinely interesting. In the gut of an infant, Bifidobacterium species can represent up to 90% of all bacteria present. 90%. Part of the reason for that early dominance is that Bifidobacterium longum subspecies infantis is uniquely equipped to break down human milk oligosaccharides, the complex sugars in breast milk that human infants cannot digest on their own. It is, in a very real sense, purpose-built for the infant gut. As we age, that number drops to roughly 3%, as other bacterial communities move in and take over. But that small remaining population of Bifidobacterium longum does not just sit idle. It produces lactic acid that suppresses harmful pathogens. It scavenges nutrients with remarkable efficiency, possessing up to 19 different transport systems for carbohydrates alone. And critically, it communicates with your brain. That communication happens through what scientists call the gut-brain axis, a bidirectional signaling highway linking the emotional and cognitive centers of your brain to the peripheral functions of your intestines. The pathways are neural, endocrine, immune, and humoral. The gut is also home to enterochrome affin cells, specialized cells scattered throughout the intestinal lining that produce roughly 95% of the body's serotonin. These cells do not just regulate digestion. They are a primary interface between gut bacteria and the brain's mood systems. And the single most important physical connection in this system appears to be the vagus nerve. Researchers confirmed this through an elegant experiment. When mice with chronic colitis and anxiety-like behavior were given Bifidobacterium longum, their anxiety diminished. But when the vagus nerve was severed before treatment, the anti-anxiety effect vanished entirely. The bacterium was sending its calming signals, partly via those enterochrome affin cells and short-chain fatty acid production, directly through that nerve. A landmark 2011 paper by Bravo, Cryan, and colleagues at the APC Microbiome Institute demonstrated a nearly identical effect using Lactobacillus rhamnosus JB1, a different probiotic strain. That parallel finding was critical. It established that this gut-to-brain signaling through the vagus nerve was not a quirk of one organism, but a broader principle of what we now call psychobiotics. Bifidobacterium longum, though, would go on to become the most clinically studied of them all. That finding opened the door to an entirely new concept: live microorganisms, with a potential mental health benefit. And Bifidobacterium longum became the most prominent example. The most compelling human evidence began emerging from two research powerhouses. The first was the APC Microbiome Institute at University College Cork in Ireland, led by researchers including Professor John Cryan and Professor Ted Dinnan. The second was McMaster University's Farncombe Family Digestive Health Research Institute in Canada, where gastroenterologist Professor Przemysl Bursik had been working on the gut-brain connection for years. In 2016, the Cork team published the first translational psychobiotic study using a specific strain called Bifidobacterium longum strain 1714. Then in 2017 came a landmark trial from McMaster. Dr. Maria Inez Pinto-Sanchez and Professor Berchik recruited 44 adults with irritable bowel syndrome, who also suffered from mild to moderate anxiety or depression. Half received a daily dose of Bifidobacterium longum, NCC 3001. The other half received a placebo. After 6 weeks, 64% of patients taking the probiotic showed decreased depression scores, compared to just 32% in the placebo group. Brain imaging revealed changes in activity in regions associated with mood regulation among those who had taken the probiotic. As Berchik himself put it, this study opens new avenues not only for functional bowel disorders, but also for patients with primary psychiatric diseases. He called it the result of a decade-long journey, from identifying the probiotic to testing it in preclinical models to tracing the pathways through which signals from the gut reach the brain. It's worth briefly noting how these strains differ from one another. B. Longum 1714 has been primarily studied for stress response and social anxiety in healthy adults. NCC 3001 has been the focus of IBS plus mood research. And a third strain, 35624, has been studied more narrowly for IBS symptoms themselves. Same species, meaningfully different clinical profiles. Now, the evidence deserves an honest look at what it does and does not tell us. Dr. Paul Enck at the University Hospital Tübingen acknowledged the results as novel and innovative, providing a scientific basis to assess the true impact of specific bacterial strains on the brain. But he and others have raised legitimate concerns. The placebo group in the McMaster trial had lower baseline depression scores, meaning the improvement in the probiotic group could partly reflect a statistical artifact known as regression to the mean. Other researchers have pointed out that a single 1-week study of B. longum found no significant reduction in stress, depression, or anxiety in young adults. Duration matters. Dosage matters. And translating promising results from animal models into human subjects has proven consistently difficult. Despite those caveats, the research kept building. In 2019, a brain imaging study confirmed that Bifidobacterium longum strain 1714 modulated neural responses during social stress in healthy volunteers. Participants played a standardized social exclusion game called Cyberball while their brain activity was monitored. Those who had taken the probiotic for 4 weeks showed activation in brain regions associated with coping and emotional regulation. Then in 2023, a randomized, placebo-controlled trial involving 45 healthy adults showed that 6 weeks of Bifidobacterium longum, NCC 3001 supplementation significantly reduced perceived stress and improved subjective sleep quality compared to placebo. And in 2024, a dedicated sleep study found that Bifidobacterium longum strain 1714 improved sleep quality and reduced daytime dysfunction from sleepiness after just 4 weeks, with further improvements to energy, vitality, and social functioning after 8 weeks. The commercial world has taken notice. The Irish company Precision Biotics, working in partnership with the APC Microbiome Institute, developed the strain 1714 into a consumer product called Zenflor. Each capsule contains 1 billion colony-forming units, and the company recommends 4 to 8 weeks to feel the full effects. The global psychobiotics market reached $1.29 billion in 2024, with projections suggesting it will hit nearly $3 billion by 2033. The Bifidobacterium species segment alone held 40% of market share in 2024, growing at over 15% annually. And psychobiotic supplements now command 30 to 50% higher prices than traditional probiotics. The most recent frontier is perhaps the most striking. In 2025, researchers published results from a study examining whether B. longum NCC 3001 could reduce anxiety and depression during pregnancy and the postpartum period. The science is also deepening at a mechanistic level. Recent work suggests B. longum alleviates neurological conditions by regulating the kynurenine pathway, a metabolic route that begins with tryptophan, the amino acid precursor to serotonin. When this pathway is dysregulated, an enzyme called indoleamine 2,3-dioxygenase, known as IDO, diverts tryptophan away from serotonin production and toward the synthesis of quinolinic acid, a neurotoxic compound implicated in depression and neurodegeneration. B. longum appears to help keep that balance in check. Other research has shown that specific B. longum strains can elevate brain-derived neurotrophic factor, known as BDNF, a protein essential for learning, memory, and neuronal survival, and may even reverse age-related cognitive decline in animal models. BDNF is increasingly viewed as a key molecular bridge between gut microbiome health and long-term brain resilience. But let's bring this back to where we started. There is a bacterium that you were likely born with. It was passed to you by your mother, possibly through birth, possibly through breast milk. It colonized your gut in the first days of your life, and it has been quietly working there ever since, albeit in diminishing numbers. And what researchers have uncovered over the past century, accelerating dramatically in the last 10 years, is that this organism does not just digest your food. It talks to your brain. It modulates your stress response. It may influence how well you sleep, how you process emotions, and how resilient you are to the psychological pressures of daily life. The evidence is real, but it is still young. Larger trials are needed. Dosage and duration effects require further study. The mechanisms are not fully mapped. As with all emerging science, we know enough to be genuinely excited, but not enough to make sweeping promises. What we can say is this: the relationship between your gut and your brain is not metaphorical. It is physical, chemical, and profoundly consequential. And Bifidobacterium longum, that tiny rod-shaped organism first spotted in an infant's diaper over a century ago, is helping us understand it in ways nobody imagined possible. Now that you understand how a single strain can reshape your mental health, you are probably wondering whether other bacteria are doing the same thing. In the next video, we are getting into the specific bacterial strains that are rewiring neural pathways, restoring memory, and even reversing cognitive decline. They are strains so promising that researchers are calling them the future of brain medicine. Stay tuned.